What's up, everybody? This is Talkin All That Kazz, and I am DJ Kazzeo. I want to thank you for checking out this particular episode of Talkin All That Kazz. On this particular episode, I got another great interview that I conducted here on my radio show at 90.9 FM, KHTC in Salinas, California. But before we get going with that, I want you to go to this address, djkazzeo.com, and connect with me on social media. Whether it's on my Facebook, on my Instagram, on my Twitter, or even if you go and subscribe to my Mixcloud channel, you can hear all my radio shows that I do in their entirety, music, commentary, and interviews. But this right here, Talkin All That Kazz, this is for just the interviews, okay? I want to thank everybody who checked out the first round of interviews that I put up. Now we're on to the second round. This particular round, I'm going to focus on 2019, but I'm going to sprinkle it in with some more current stuff too. So you never know what you're going to get. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy another edition of Talkin All That Kazz with me, DJ Kazzeo. That's right. We back in the place right here. It's 90.9 FM, KHTC Radio Bilingue. Yours truly, Kazzeo.
V-Dog still here.
And M7.
That's right. And as promised, good things come to those who wait. We are joined right now by the one and only MC Serch. What's up, Serch?
Yo, what's up, fellas, man? I'm really sorry, man. It's my bad. I really don't like to be that dude being late, so I apologize.
You're right on time, bro.
It's all good, man. Like I said, man, good things come to those who wait, man. And this is a great thing right here, man.
Yes, definitely.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time.
Me on, no doubt.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So lots going on with you right now. I know you got the Kickstarter project. You got a book and a soundtrack in the works. We're going to get into that in a second, but this being your first time on the show, we want to go back real quick, and I apologize if these are some questions that you've answered 1,000 times, but take me back. I mean, not fully to the beginning, because I don't want to get into the whole Warlock records and all that stuff. I know that's way past, but like as far as third base, how did third base form?
Yeah, well, it really comes down to one of these situations where I was signed to Rush Management. I had become friends with Dante Ross prior to Dante going to Tommy Boy, and prior to Dante even doing A&R. At the time, Dante was working at Rush Management, and he was actually on the road with Ricky and Rakim. And Dante and I met each other, and, we just started breaking bread. And then the next thing you know, he's introducing me to his homeboy, Sam Sever. And then Sam and I started making, demos. And it was one of these things where, it was cool. I was making demos and I was happy, but I wasn't really happy. It was one of these things where I was like, something's missing. Skeptical. I'm not sure how people are going to peep it. And, you talk about Warlock. I had released 2 singles in New York prior to that. Mm-hmm. One which was, really a bad record, horrifically bad, called Melissa on Warlock.
Right.
And the next one, which was not so bad, which was called Hey Boy, with the B-side called Go White Boy, because that's what they used to scream in the Land Quarter when I used to do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was making all these records with Sam, and I had heard about this kid, Pete Nice, from a lot of my homeboys. The first white rapper I ever saw, this kid, Keo, had known Pete. My man Clark Kent, DJ Clark Kent, knew Pete. Pete had a radio show with Clark at Columbia. So I had heard a lot about this kid, but, I really didn't know anything about him. And then I had later heard that, Lumumba Carson, who later became, X-Clan, was managing Pete. So I was like, all right, cool, this kid's trying to make moves. It's all good, whatever. And I get a call from Lior, and he's like, yo, this guy, Steve Rabowski, who made the deal at CBS to bring Def Jam, he went to A&M Records. And he really wanted to sign me. It was between me and this dude, Raheem, out of Houston, Texas. So know, he had heard my demos, and he was like, yeah, you know, I want to meet Serch, and, you know, I think we want to do a deal with him. And that night, I get a call from Dante. And Dante's like, yo, you need to call Sam. And I'm like, yo, you know, what's going on? He's like, yo, just call Sam. So I call Sam, and Sam tells me that basically Dante called him last minute and told him that his boy Pete was in Chungking and that he had spent all this studio time and all these dudes flaked on him. Like Clark Kent flaked on him and all these dudes that were supposed to help him produce this record. And at the last minute, Sam went in there and helped him and was like really blown away, and that I needed to come check homeboy out. So I was like, all right, you know, whatever, I'll, you know, that's fine, you know. But I told Sam, I was like, look, you know, we just got to be ready for tomorrow's meeting, you know, with this A&M thing. And I went to Sam's apartment at Canal Street, and there was Pete. And Sam's like, yo, this is the record we made last night. And he presses play on the cassette machine, and I hear, brown, 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 brown. And then I hear, hard as Chinese arithmetic, avant-garde, not a heretic, pick out a right rhyme, which was, you know, the beginning of Words of Wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind just went, yo. And I started writing because he didn't have a second verse, and I started writing. And the next thing I know, we're in, like, Chungking, which was, like, 10 blocks away, and we're laying down Words of Wisdom. And within, like, you know, 6 hours, we had, like, 2 other songs done. So Steve Rabowski comes for this meeting in Chungking and is asking me about, you know, what I'm doing and all of that. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, I'm not a soloist anymore. I'm in this group now called Three the Hard Way, which was me, Sam, and Pete. And mind you, you know, Steve Rabowski, you know, he helped Russell, like, lock in the Beastie Boy deal and Columbia and all of that. So he really wasn't trying to mess with another white rap group. So he didn't really get it. He's like, I don't really get the, you know, the group thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, you know, I'll talk to Lior. So we're like, all right, you know, whatever. And he leaves, and Lior calls us 15 minutes later and kicks us out of the studio for ruining the deal, and that we were all like, you know, he was letting me go from management, and he kicked us basically to the curb. Now, here's the thing that I'm actually telling y'all that no one knows, that I've never shared ever before, but this is also going to be in the book. Dante and Sam told me that the reason I should mess with Pete was that Pete was signed to Rush as well, and that he was going to wind up being competition for me, so it's better that we link up.
Right.
Okay.
Pete was never signed to Rush.
Right. So you mentioned 2 quick things. You mentioned Sam Sever was part of the original lineup. When did Sam leave and move on to, and you guys brought in Daddy Rich? And also, if anybody's checking Sam Sever, go check out the group Downtown Science, because that was a dope group as well.
Room to breathe. One of my favorite records.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Sam leaves the group like maybe 3 minutes after we find out that we're not getting a deal. Hello?
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah,
okay,
we're here.
Sorry.
He's
Yeah.
captivated,
No, sorry. So like 3 minutes later, he's out of the group because he wants to focus on producing, and that's all good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had my homeboy that I knew from Nashville named DJ White Knight. And he was the first DJ in third base. And I brought him up from Nashville, and he was my man, like, because I used to, let's put it this way, I used to make runs back in the day up and down 75 to Nashville, to Cashville and Memphis. And I brought him up with me, and I was living in Queens with my then girlfriend, now wife, Chantel. And things just didn't click. Like, he got real homesick, and then he didn't feel like working. And, you know, he was just like, you know, this cool country kid who wound up, like, sleeping on the sofa, eating macaroni and cheese all day. And I was just like, yeah, you got to breathe. Like, you got to breathe. Like, this ain't working.
Right.
And then, you know, we had always known Daddy Rich from around the way. And, you know, Rich was this incredible DJ, like, you know, did 45-inch verticals over turntables and, like, you know, DMC World Championships, like one of the baddest DJs we had ever seen. And we're like, you know what, this would be really cool, like Daddy Rich, all of us in the group together. And that's kind of how Third Base came about. And the recording, the skit before Gasface on the album is when we told Russell the name of the group. We actually recorded the actual conversation because we had found out a week before that Three the Hard Way, Universal Pictures wasn't going to give us the rights to the name.
Right. Because
so literally, yeah.
Wasn't that the LL Cool J movie?
No, that was the Jim Kelly movie.
Oh, okay.
Back in the 70s, like, you know, before any of you were born.
Well,
so,
for my two co-hosts, yeah, me not so much.
Okay, got you. So yeah, there was a blaxploitation movie back in the day called Three the Hard Way.
Right.
And Jim Brown and a couple other heads. So they weren't going to give us the rights to it. So we had to come up with a last minute. And we came up with Third Base, with, you know, Pete being a huge baseball fan, but us being a music group, we changed the BASE from bass to BASS.
Right.
And that skit is when we made the decision to call the group Third Base.
Dope, man, dope. So, you know, jumping way forward, what led to the breakup of the group?
Well, the breakup is real simple. The breakup really comes down to the fact that just around the second album, I just wanted to be a different person. And what that means to me, and what that I'm letting you know, is that, like, I was the class clown. Like, I was the one on the road who, when we were in the hotels, would run around in his underwear, and, like, you know, I would be acting wild, and, like, I would be acting stupid, and I just didn't want to be that dude. I wanted to be on the road with my wife. It wasn't my wife at the time, but she was my girl, and I just wanted to be, you know, kind of settled in and, like, enjoy being on the road with my girl and, you know, just traveling. And, you know, Pete felt like a little, like, cramped. And he got frustrated because he had a moment where he, you know, was doing his thing and he was going to make us late on the road, and I was frustrated, and the people he was with on the tour bus needed to get off the tour bus, and he got upset about that. And he went back to New York, and I didn't know he was gone. I didn't even pay attention. And he came back, and he was in his hotel room, and I approached him, and I asked him why he went home, and he basically said, if your bitch wasn't on the bus, I wouldn't have to go home.
Wow.
Ooh.
So I was like taken back a little bit. And the thing that was really crazy, and I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but, you know, I'm 22 years old. And he's saying this, and our dancers are my best friends from Long Beach, like Zev Love X, MF Doom, a.k.a. MF Doom, Sub Rock, may he rest in peace, Ahmed, Otis, Emis, GYP. Like, that's my people. Like, I brought all of them dudes up. You know what I mean? Like, we came up together, MLK Center, like, that was my people.
Right.
And now Peter's in a hotel room, and my two boys are, like, flanking him like security. And I said, yo, say that again? And now he's on the phone, mind you. And he said, if your bitch wasn't on the bus, I wouldn't have to go home. And I was like, yeah, you need to come out here. We need to, you know, we're going to fight a fair one.
Right.
And he's like, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to pimp slap me? I said, well, if you're a bitch, I'm going to slap you. Sorry, you know, if you're a B word, I'm going to slap you. But you look like a grown man, so I'm going to knuckle you up real quick. I'm going to lump you up real quick. And then my boys, I met an Otis, they jumped in. And I'm like, yeah, nah, this is word? Like, y'all are going to disrespect my wife?
Oh, so
you're
you're
gonna disrespect my queen? Like y'all are all gonna be in on this?
so your boys turned on you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
notice turned on me, and I'm like, so what I did was I called Rush and I called Lior, and I said, Lior, like, how many more deposits do we have on this Pop Goes the Weasel tour? Because we were headlining our own tour. It was us, and we had Cypress Hill, Tim Dog, and Nice and Smooth, and we were headlining the tour. Like, we were out.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, yo, we got 2 weeks of deposits. And I was like, yo, don't take any more deposits. We called our booking agent at the time, this guy, Lee Stolman. I said, don't take any more deposits. Last show's in Philly. We need to come home. We need to square things away because, yo, I can't have this dude calling my girl out her name. Like, yo, that ain't going to fly ever. Like, that's not flying.
Right.
I said, he can have the tour bus. I'm going to follow the tour. The rest of the tour, I'm going to follow in a car. I rented a car. I drove myself sometimes 12, 14 hours a night to get to a show, and I would get on stage, I would do my verse, and then I would get off stage.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even want to be on
So
stage
that was
with
the end,
Homeboy.
man. Wow.
So rumors started to swirl, like what was going on. So, and I don't know if I'm running my mouth. I hope.
No. This is great stuff, man.
But,
this is great stuff.
So we do a show in the Carolinas, right? And things are really heated between the group and us and all of that. And we go to do this show in the Carolinas, and our road manager is walking one of our female dancers into the crowd, you know, for her to get some water or whatever. And this dude, like, grabs up on her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm already tight as it is. So I'm just looking for an excuse to knuckle somebody up and lump them up. And as soon as I saw that and she got all flustered and my road manager started, like, whatever, 3 dudes, like, surrounded him. And we were on some campus. I think we were on UNC. Actually, it was UNC Chapel Hill.
Okay.
So this dude, like, so I go on. I just run up on this dude and I pop him. And when I hit him, his mouth was open. So when I hit him, I damn near ripped his jaw off his face. Oh. And he hit the ground. His boys are like, yo, like, right. And I'm blacked out. I'm like blacked out. I'm ready to, like, kill everybody.
Right.
So I get pulled back into the room by my security and all of that. And my wife is like, yo, what is wrong with you? And yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, yo, they shouldn't have put their hands on it, blah, blah, blah. The magistrate comes in, and they're like, yo, you guys can perform, but your man's getting locked up after the show. And my road manager's like, well, you know, we're not going to leave him in the state. You know, what do we have to do? And they're like, yeah, well, you know, this guy wants to press charges and all of that, yada, yada, yada. So, you know, we can hold him here in the club, but we're going to have to lock him up. And Pete was like, good, leave him.
Wow.
So they left me. No, they left me. The tour bus left. And, yeah, so, like, I wound up stepping a Homeboy, and I was like, yo, you should really think about dropping these charges. Like, you should really think about it. Make a really smart decision.
So first you had your boys that you brought up, they turned on you. Then the road manager who wasn't doing his job, he turned on you as well?
No, he didn't turn on me. No, not at all. Like, he had to do what Pete told him to do. And again, there's certain things that, like, you know, you have to just deal with. Like, there's certain hours on the road. It's like you being on the radio, right? You get a 4-hour block.
Right.
Well, you can't go 2 hours over. You're gonna have drama. The only way you can go 2 hours over is if someone calls and says, hey, Blase Flea ain't coming in. Can you do 2 hours over? Right? There's certain rules to the game when you're on the road. Drivers can only drive for a certain amount of time. So they left. So that was like, for me, that was like, I was done. Like, I was done.
Right.
So I started calling Pete out his name on stage. So, like, when Pete's line, when I would say in words of wisdom, yo, Pete, tell him, manifest this, I'd be like, yo, B, tell him, you know, B-I-T-C-H.
Right.
Tell him.
Right.
And, like, you know, then all of a sudden Kurt Loder is like on MTV News talking about there's problems with third base, and third base looks like they're breaking up. So whatever. So we go to Philly. Things really pipe off. Like Pete's girl, Rich's girl, try to jump my girl. Like it's a mess, right?
Wow.
Yeah, that's
And I'm
chaos.
and I'm in the car. I've literally just left Philly. We just like sold out some spot in Philly. I call Lior and Lee Spolman, and I'm like, look, we need to have a meeting before we go back on the road. And Lior goes, yeah, we booked a month more shows.
Oh,
No.
And I was like,
No.
yeah, y'all killed the group. I said, y'all killed the group.
right,
I said, I'll do the month shows. And I said, the 31st day, I'm gone.
right.
And that's exactly what happened. The 31st day, I packed myself up and I disappeared. I grabbed my wife and my girl at the time, but she 4 days later became my wife, and we dipped to L.A. And we just laid in the cut, and our idea was we're just going to relocate to Los Angeles. You know, Ice Cube had been telling me like that's the place for me, and I should be there anyway, and blah blah blah. And you know, even though Hammer tried to kill us, like I still could be good and all of that. And you know, and I met Wolf and Epic, who just came off doing Poison for BBD, and me and Epic became super tight. And the next thing I know, I'm working on the solo album.
Exactly, man. Exactly. So, you know, I'm not here by myself. I got my two co-hosts, V-Dog and M7, in here with me as well. And I know they got some questions for you, so I'm going to let them pick your brain for a second.
Yeah.
Sure. What up, V-Dog? What up, M7?
What up, fam?
How you doing? This is V-Dog here real quick. I just want to say, first off, it is definitely an honor to have you on the show. I was born in 82, so when that album, the Cactus album, came out, I was 6, so I had no idea about it. But
okay. You know what's crazy? Yesterday was the 29th birthday
Yes.
of that album.
Yeah, I saw a fan post that on Facebook, and I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's and the timing of it all. So I was about to bring that up. So congratulations. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's crazy that people are still even talking about us, and that's just, you know, it's really insane. Like, we're such a small blip on the map of this culture. Like, you know, there's a very famous Talmudic Jewish law that says the more you learn about yourself, the smaller you become. And like, there's so many more artists that have had so much length and longevity that, you know, we had this small little blip of time in this 40-year span, and that people still, you know, talk about us and listen to our music, and you know, it's really, you know, it's very humbling.
Yeah, and when that's what I was saying, you are part of it, and you're actually an important staple in hip hop. You know, from being involved with Illmatic and all that as well. But the question I wanted to ask you, because I found this so interesting, and I remember back in 2007, 2008, you were involved in the VH1 show, the one about the female rappers, I guess, trying to come up, and you were one of the judges. And that seemed like quite the adventure for you. And you almost seemed sometimes borderline frustrated. So I'm wondering, are you going to talk about that in your book, or is that, I just want to know what it was like working.
Yeah, no, so, you know, it was definitely frustrating. But it wasn't frustrating because it was not an interesting and intriguing project.
Right.
It was frustrating because of where I was personally in my life.
Oh, okay.
And what I was balancing in my life. And, you know, when you talk about this book and this Kickstarter campaign that we're doing, you know, my whole idea behind this is really to examine things and experiences in my life and stories that I feel need to be expounded on, you know, that have only been like little glimpses and little blips. Like, you know, I think there's a certain amount of people that know MC Hammer tried to kill us, right? Put a hit out on us back in the day. But there's so much to that story. And maybe I've told a 12-minute version of that, or maybe I told a 15-minute version of that. But that entire event is like a novel in itself, right?
Yes.
And I've never had the capability to properly tell that story. Like, I've never had the wherewithal to really get into the minutia of it, but also from a creative standpoint. Like, and I'm not talking about droning on and on and on and on and on, but really getting into the minutia of, you know, what the dirt felt like when we were at K-Day and what that studio felt like, and, you know, really putting people into that place that we were in when we spoke to Hammer on K-Day and he said what he said on the air, and, you know, all of that. So, like, and that's just one aspect, you know, like the Bushwick Bill story, which I've told several times. It's also like, it's a very small, encapsulated story of a much more detailed story.
Gotcha.
You know, to be honest with you, the Miss Rap Supreme show, which was very similar to the White Rapper show, was really more of a social experiment than it was a chapter in my life, right?
Okay.
Because ultimately I was paid to be a host. I wasn't paid to conceptually come up with the ideas. I wasn't, you know, asked to be involved any deeper than just, you know, just, for lack of a better word, surface. The one thing I will say that was amazing was that my wife was in charge of all of the fashion.
Oh, wow.
She was,
that's good.
Yeah, so having her on set was really amazing, and, like, being able to spend the summer with her in L.A. and, like, you know, and have her on set was really, you know, it was a different experience.
Oh, that's cool. All right.
That's awesome that you're able to work with her like that.
Thank you.
Yo, man. What up, Serch? This is M7 once again, and honestly, I'm kind of in V-Dog's shoes where, you know, I was just a youngster when you were, you know, already, you know, 10 years deep into your music game. So, you know, even as somebody that's been doing this for, I think I got like, you know, over 10, 15 years under my belt, you know, it's such an honor to have you because you've established so much and actually inspired and, you know, kind of, I mean, been a staple in this culture. So big ups to you and thank you so much for taking the time. I have a few questions coming from couple of my buddies. One of them, you know, he's also a hip hop head out here, and you heavily influenced him. So I'm gonna hit you with a couple of them from him, and then I also see that you have a live stream happening tomorrow from your Kickstarter page, where, you know, you're also taking more questions. So I'm gonna just kind of segue into that, so we can definitely promote your current project, the audiobook album.
Yeah, that's fine. But you know, M7, I just want you to say that, like, you know, it's very brave of you to allow your best friend Vanilla Ice to ask me questions. I think that's amazing.
No. It ain't like that.
No, I
Appreciate
think it might be M7. I think it might be.
No.
It's okay.
All right, so
go ahead.
Pretty much want to start off with this, you know, being somebody that put so many staples in so much of the culture. What's it like to reflect on, you know, Illmatic turning 25 next year, and you obviously, you know, being involved in one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time? I mean, if you can give us a little bit about that, you know.
Yeah, you know, and that's going to be a chapter in the book, definitely, because there's so much detail, and there's a lot of things that have been asked of me about, you know, meeting Nas and how we, you know, how that collaboration came together and, you know, putting that together. You know, the one thing I will say, because for me, and these over there will probably have more of a connection to this than you guys, unless you really dug this deep. For me, during that period of time, I felt that I was working with two of the greatest MCs in New York in '93, which was Nas and OC. OC was just coming off an Organized Confusion record called Fudge Pudge. Pharaoh Monch and Prince Poe were my boys. O is my people. And I just, you know, I fell in love with Homeboy. Like, he was like, take a bullet for him. Nas was a different scenario because Nas, based on the fact that he had Live at the Barbecue and already had this huge buzz and was very much a mythical kind of Oscar Wilde figure in hip-hop where people knew of him, but they didn't know where he was or what he was doing, or it was very much under wraps. And when he came to me, because he literally did, he came to the studio when I was doing Back to the Grill again, and we kind of sat down and figured things out. It was really about figuring things out. Like, he was getting a deal that was not fair for who I believed was going to be the greatest MC of all time. And that's how I looked at it in '93, and I didn't look at it any differently. I looked at it very simply. He was the greatest MC. He was going to be the greatest MC of all time. And my favorite MC of all time is Rakim. So, but I looked at it like I would be remiss. It would almost be a disrespect if I didn't take care and protect him. OC was a whole different animal because O had Fudge Pudge, but it wasn't the magnetic vibe that Nas had. We had Halftime off the Zebrahead soundtrack. We had Back to the Grill again. His verse was banging the streets. That record was banging the streets. Like, there was such a buzz and just an energy. And with O and making Word Life, it was the toughest A&R project I had ever dealt with in my career. Like, we made 50 songs, 40, 50 songs, and each one I was just like, yeah, it's all right, but, that ain't it. And he would get furious, and he'd want to fight me, and O and I would have to go to the roof of the Wild Pitch building, and we would be almost, knuckled up and want to lump each other up. And I would have to just convince him like, yo, B, trust me. When it's right, it's right. You got to just believe me when I tell you when it's right, it's going to be right. Like, trust me. And then it became right. He played me Time's Up, and it was the whole album got made after that. Like, we were in the studio for almost 2 years, 40 songs deep, not one of them moving the needle. He walked into my office having a 30-minute session with Buckwild, laid down Time's Up, and 2 weeks later, Word Life was done. Like, everything was tracked and done.
So what
and
do
he
you think
agreed
was
with me,
different?
and he was like, he was like, wow, he was like, yeah, no, Serch, I see it. Nas was the exact opposite.
Okay.
Nas knew what he wanted, and he made everyone work their tails off. Like, he made Pete Rock, like, play beats for, 4 months. Every day. 6 hours a day. That ain't it. That ain't it. That ain't it. I'll take this home and write to this. Okay, now we got one. No, that ain't it. That ain't it. But when he locked in, he locked in. We in 8 months recorded 10 songs. And those 10 songs made the album. And that was it. Like, we turned it in, and that was it. And Nas was like, yep, I'm done. And that was it.
That's
and it was
what's up.
such a different, it's such a dichotomy, and especially, after, and then going into It Was Written, which I also executive produced, and that whole pivot and how that album came about, and so it was this left and right, and to this day, I feel terrible because I truly believe that people need to know Word Life as much as they need to know Illmatic.
That is a great album.
To me, that album is just as good. Maybe if not better because I worked that much harder on it. Like, it literally felt like I went to sleep, I woke up, and Illmatic was done. And I know how hard we worked. I remember driving Nas to Mount Vernon and driving Nas to go see Extra P and going to Queens and going to Q-Tip's mom's house and, you know, and driving around and doing what we had to do. But it seemed really simple. Clearing the samples, getting it done, making sure the studio time, you know, O was pulling teeth, and then I wind up costing him 5 mics in the source, you know, and I screw that up. And, you know what I'm saying? And, like, you know, for years after, they were like, you know, one of the top 5 underrated albums of all time. And, like, 10 years later, albums that deserved 5 mics. And I'm like, come on, B. Like, really? We're going to, you know, like, I was sick. I was sick.
Man,
yeah.
Thank you so much for that insight. I have one more for you, and this is kind of a quick one. Question is, do you still keep in touch at all with MF Doom, and what's your response kind of seeing his career renaissance?
Well, first of all, just so you know, I'm a neurotic Jew from Queens, so no question's going to be short. Because I can talk for days.
Word, man. Appreciate it, man.
But my relationship with Doom is distant, as it is with almost everybody in his life except his wife. Doom, I will share with you, Doom is laid up on an island in the Caribbean in a beautiful home. He is there. His wife is really in charge of everything Doom-related. We do have a relationship. It is not what it was when we were growing up together. It certainly wasn't what it was after his brother died. It definitely became strained after Black Bastards. But he also had his demons that he had to confront, and that isolated him. And there was nothing really that I could do or say that was going to eliminate those demons for him. I did have an opportunity to do a record with him and Curious George 8 years ago. George actually got Doom to do a verse. I did a verse, which was a lot of fun. Little independent record that came out on Amalgam. But, you know, my relationship with Doom is really through his wife, and, you know, very limited communication. But I love Doom. I will always love Zev as a brother, as a friend, and he's in a good place. You know what I mean? Like, he's happy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's genuinely content and in a good place.
And that's the most important thing in life right there.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, just to be happy. So, you know, as we start to wind it down a little bit, you know, you got the book now, which is stories from your time in front of the mic and as well as behind the scenes. You know, more likely than not, they won't be in there. But, you know, for someone who was like kind of like around that scene at the time, I can only hope that there's maybe some stories from the Gavin conventions, because those were wild back in San Francisco.
Yeah, we're gonna leave those out of the book. That's for when me and you, Beezus, when we go and get some, you know, when we're at the bar and we're chilling, and we can talk about that. But no, you know, and you said something really interesting, and I just want to correct it. You said, now that I have the book, and the truth of the matter is I don't. I will only have the book if the fans invest the money and believe in the project. And that's why I did it this way, because ultimately at the end of the day, if we don't raise the money, nobody gets hurt. The money goes back to everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't have the book. What I do is I have tons of stories that I want to tell. And, you know, my whole approach to this was, you know, for years people are telling me, you know, oh, you know, tell so many stories. When are you going to write a book? And, you know, when are you going to, you know, go back in the lab? And, you know, I did a great record. Well, at least I think it's a great record with the Addicts, DJ Menace and those guys 2 years ago. And, you know, I write 4-8 bars all the time, and, you know, I stay writing. And, you know, that's just who I am as a human being. It's not even as an MC anymore. It's just a part of my DNA to, like, I see something and then I write 4 bars and I write, you know, 8 bars. Or, you know, I just wrote an entire Gasface 2018 record, like, you know what I mean, and just like in 5 minutes, just like
see, I gotta,
it all.
We got to hear
you know
that.
I mean? So,
yeah,
we got to hear
you know,
that.
Well, that I will give you a teaser on the live stream tomorrow. I'm going to be doing the first verse from that record
Nice.
to show people what the album's going to feel like. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like, I didn't want to take an advance from a book publisher. I didn't want that pressure. I also didn't want a book publisher to lose money on something that, they would give me an X amount of an advance, and then we sell 3 records and 2 of them to my parents. Like, I didn't want that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was just in a place where I based on my career and what I've been doing, I always know that December and January are the times when I have the most time for myself. Like, I get to spend time with my kids who are all out of the house. So they come home for a couple of days, and, I get to spend time with my wife. But I've learned historically that those are the 2 months of the year that I have time for me.
Right.
And I said this year, you know what? I like the Kickstarter platform. I talked to Paz. I saw how well he did. I have another homeboy who has a Kickstarter platform where you can build your own mobile phone, and he's doing really well. And So I said, you know what? Let me just do this. And a lot of people said to me, like, yo, you should have just made it like for $1,000, and then la 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 la. I'm like,
no,
yeah,
but you got a budget.
Then I would have had to deliver something for like $3,000, which wouldn't have been fair.
Right.
So I did it based on literally nuts to bolts budget for the money that it would take me to basically do everything to deliver what I need to deliver to the people that support the project.
No doubt, man. So run down the information of how people can go to Kickstarter and get all that info and, show their support.
Yeah, I mean, it's real simple. The hyperlink is mcserchbook.com. SERCH, no A. M as in Michael, C as in cat, search, SERCH, book.com. And that'll take you right to the Kickstarter.
True that.
Right.
True that. And if people want to catch up with you on social media, how they go about doing that?
MC Serch, that's on Twitter. Instagram is EMCEE Search on the IG. And the Kickstarter, I just told you. And I'm not on Snapchat because there's too many chicken heads trying to get at me on Snapchat. I'm not having it. So I'm not really on Snapchat like that. But Tumblr, Reddit, it's all MC Serch.
Dope, man. Well, I definitely got to tell you, and I think I speak for these two cats as well. Always been a fan. Really appreciate you taking the time to call in tonight and, drop some wisdom and drop some great stories. And definitely, I believe the book will be made. I believe you will meet the goal, and I can't wait to read it, man.
Well, I appreciate that. And you know what, guys? It's not an if, it's a when. If it doesn't happen this year, we'll try it next year. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really pressed. Like, and that's the whole thing about it for me is that, like, if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, great. But eventually it'll happen. We'll just figure it out. You know what I mean? But, guys, I can't thank you enough for your time and your energy. And I will leave you with this, man. When brothers like y'all give me this kind of time and this kind of effort, I'm in a point in my life where the one commodity I will never get back is time. I can always make more money. I can always buy more kicks. I can always make more music. I can always, buy more things. But the one thing I can't buy is time. So for you guys to spend this 45 minutes with me, time that you're never going to get back, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate it.
Oh, you're the man, man. We appreciate you, and definitely going to keep, looking out for you. And like I said, man, can't wait to. We could have sat here for another 2 hours with questions, man.
Easily.
But you got, like you said, you got kids, and you got to take care of all that. So
the Kickstarter live tomorrow. They can ask as many questions as they want. That's going to be a lot of fun. We got a nice little spot in Orlando called Geek Easy. It's got like old school video games, and it's a banging little spot. My homeboy DJ Dolo and Temper 3000 and all the beat makers in Orlando, and we're just going to have a good time, man.
And that's tomorrow evening, right? For anybody that's curious.
Tomorrow evening, 10 o'clock Eastern.
It's 10 o'clock
p.m.
Eastern.
We're going to start the Kickstarter live.
Dope, man. Dope. All right, man. Well, I'm going to be talking to you next week on a conference call. But until then, man, again, thank you for taking the time, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right. One love, fellas.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.